over. If all you ever do is all you've ever done, all you'll ever get is not all you've ever done. Woody Allen's dictum that 90% of life is showing up is N-A, no longer applicable. You just show up to your job. You just sort of punch your ticket. There is a machine, there's a piece of software, there's a robot, or there is a cheap genius out there available to your boss that will make you no longer applicable. So the way we constructed this education section, we first have a chapter describing the hyperconnecting world. It's called Up in the Air. Again, we use a movie. Up in the Air is the movie of our time. And those of you who've seen it know what I mean. George Clooney plays a person whose job is to fire people. He then gets replaced when his assistant invents an automated way to do this over the internet. That's the story of our time. But then what we did was, we want to talk about education, but we tried to do this book inductively. So what we did first was actually go to employers and ask, well, who are you actually looking for to hire? What are the skills you're looking for? We called that chapter Help Wanted. And we went to 4 employers. A high-end white-collar firm, a Washington law firm, the head of this Washington law firm, that's a national law firm, went to the head of their Washington office. A low-end white-collar firm, the outsourcing firm 24/7, who actually started The World is Flat. A blue-collar firm, DuPont, we interviewed Ellen Cohen. DuPont, and lastly, the world's biggest green-collar firm, the U.S. Army. And what we discovered is that all 4 bosses are looking for the same employee, same kind of employee. They're looking for an employee who's been educated in a way that empowers and enables them to do critical thinking and reasoning, problem solving, ... in order to get a job. A critical reasoning and thinking, that's now table stakes. What they're all actually looking for are people who can do that and invent, reinvent, and readapt and re-engineer the job they're doing, whatever that job is. Because the hyper-connecting of the world is driving change so quickly. There are firms in Silicon Valley today, Groupon is one of them, that now evaluate their employees every quarter. Because over the year, they may introduce 5 different product cycles. They can't wait till the end of the year now to find out that they have a bad team leader. So that's actually what everyone's looking for. So Jeff Les, the head of the Washington law firm, it was very interesting. We sat down with him, he said, we just hired a chief innovation officer. Law firm has a chief innovation officer. Maybe the most interesting was our green collar interview. It was with General Martin Dempsey. You may have heard that name. If you haven't, you're going to hear a lot of it. He just became chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He'll be sworn in next month. But when we interviewed him 6 months ago, he happened to be the head of the U.S. Army Education. But what's most interesting about General Dempsey is that in 2003, he commanded the 1st Armored Division that took Baghdad from Saddam Hussein. In 2008, he found himself head of CENTCOM, the Middle East Command. And in that year, he told us, he went out and visited a base in far-flung corner of Afghanistan near the Hindu Kush, run by an American captain. He tells us in the book, he sat down with that captain, talked to him, and realized that that captain had access to more intelligence at both the tactical and national level than he, and more firepower than he, Martin Dempsey, had when he took Baghdad from Saddam Hussein in 2003. Therefore, how he trains that captain and how he chooses that captain is wholly different. And that's why General Dempsey explained to us that he's introduced in boot camp now. Every new recruit gets an iPhone, and on many days, they will be asked to download an app and teach the course, not the drill section. So everybody's actually, all we see is going on under the umbrella of the subprime crisis and under the umbrella of our crazy politics. This is the actual trend that's going on. So what we actually need in terms of education is we need 2 things. We need to lift the bottom to the average. We need to get so many people who aren't getting the skills at all to the average, because if you don't have a high school degree now, there is nothing out there. And if you don't have a high school degree that prepares you to get through college without remediation, you are going to have a real challenge. So we got to bring the bottom to the average, but at the same time, we have to bring the average so much higher to the global average and get workers who can not only do the job, but invent, adapt, and reinvent the job. Our simple advice in this book to parents is the following. You want to instill in your kids and in our schools 3 sort of modes of thinking. One, think like a new immigrant, think like an artisan, and think like a waitress. What do we mean? Think like an immigrant. You see, we're all immigrants to the new world. How does an immigrant think? First of all, he or she understands nothing is owed them. There is no legacy place at Harvard waiting for them. They need to understand very clearly what's going on in their environment, where the opportunities are, study very clearly, and work like crazy in order to seize them. Think like an immigrant. But also think like an artisan. This is an idea with Dr. Lawrence Katz, the labor economist at Harvard. And Larry says, who is the artisan? The artisan was the person who built things and created things before mass production. And they built each saddle, or each shoe, or each purse as a one-off, as an individual, something they brought something extra to. And they were so proud of it, they often carved their initials in. Everyone needs to bring something extra to what they do. For some people, that'll be inventing a new software program. For other people, it'll be an employee at a nursing home who truly engages your elderly parents in a way that puts a smile on their face. Whatever it is you do, make sure you want to carve your initials in it at the end of every day. And lastly, think like a waitress. I was out in Minneapolis, started working on this book, and having breakfast at Perkins Pancake House with my best friend, Kenny Greer. 7 a.m., I ordered 3 buttermilk pancakes and scrambled eggs. Ken ordered 3 pancakes and fruit. And a few minutes later, the waitress came, put down our plate, and she simply said to Ken, I gave you extra fruit. She got a 50% tip from that. Because that waitress didn't control much, but she controlled the fruit label. That was her extra. Now, I know a lot of you are maybe thinking, oh, very easy for you to say, Mr. New York Times columnist. Not so easy for me. Well, let me tell you about my life. I actually inherited James Reston's office at the New York Times Washington Bureau. What an honor. Great columnist and editor. I suspect Mr. Reston would come to the office back in the 60s and 70s and say to himself, I wonder what my 7 competitors are going to write today. And he actually knew all 7. Walter Lippmann, Stuart Alsop, Mary Rory, he knew all 7. You know, I do the same thing. I come to the office every morning and I say, I wonder what my 70 million competitors are going to write. If I'm writing about Iraq and I don't write something more intelligent or interesting than the best Iraqi blogger, which is now available to you simply on Real Clear Politics, what do you need me for? I got the plug-in for you. You don't need to go to Real Clear Politics. You can go to Beirut Daily Star. You can go to the Iraqi Daily News. What do you need me for? So all of us are feeling this strain. And that's why our last education chapter is called Average is Officially Over. Everyone needs to find their extra.